U.S.-China relations, President Trump announcing that he is extending the deadline for a trade deal, saying that there has been substantial progress after recent talks in Washington and Beijing. This coming as Chinese telecom operator Huawei is releasing its new folding smartphone. The threat, however, from Huawei's 5G network is still a major concern. Here's what South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham told me on Sunday Morning Futures yesterday when he was talking about Huawei use by European countries.
We believe this is a spying platform that will not be able to share information with you that we would have otherwise, because you'll be giving it to China, and the technology you're buying for China will basically crowd you out of the American market. If you pick Chinese technology, like the 5G systems they're trying to sell, you'll wind up losing access to American information and systems. Make a wise decision.
And he's basically saying make a wise decision to European countries. Joining me right now is Harvard University economics professor, former IMF chief economist, Kenneth Rogoff. Ken, it's good to see you.
Pleasure to be here,
So
Marie.
Lindsey Graham's comments mirror what Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told me last week, that when he was in Europe last week, he was getting pushback from Europe. They didn't want to redo their whole telecom infrastructure. They have China, who already constructed it with Huawei. But now we understand that there's espionage concerns. And now the U.S. is saying, look, we may hold back information. Your reaction?
Well, this is a big issue, the cyber spying between the U.S. and China, cyber warfare. And I think we have to take a close look at it. I don't know what else to say. It's very technical, obviously.
Yeah. Well, what about the trade deal and the issues at stake between China and the U.S.? And that includes, of course, the IP theft, the forced transfer of technology, as well as China buying more soybeans and grain from the United States and liquefied natural gas.
Well, I think if we get progress on the first two, it is a fantastic progress, and it's really something to be noted and celebrated. I don't know if we will. If it's all about they're buying some more U.S. goods, some sort of temporary things, that's not the real problem. The real problem is China's behavior in the global trading system. If they're going to keep growing and becoming more and more important, they've got to play by the rules. They haven't been.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. The Chinese have to convince the world that, in fact, it's safe to use Huawei before anybody trusts them. I want to ask you about. Go ahead. You want to say?
Well, I was going to say, if one goes to China, you're told, don't bring your cell phone,
right.
Don't bring your computer. Right. They'll, take it over, and that's a ridiculous situation.
By the way, they say the same thing about Russia.
Well, it's also true about Russia.
Exactly. Okay. So let me ask you about the global story here in terms of the economy. We have a survey by the National Association for Business Economics finding 42% of economists believe that a recession will happen in 2020. Do you see a recession in 2020?
I mean, it's a possibility. We're talking over a 2-year period. We're at a fairly modest growth rate. So having a technical recession, it's a, say, 40% chance, less than even money. But right now, the U.S. economy is doing pretty well. There's a slow patch in the global economy. I think China's more than a slow patch. I think it may have a soft landing, but it'll be onto a downward slope. Centralizing power does not work in trying to have a productive economy. Europe, I'm less sure. Their growth rate is pretty low in trend. Can they get back to it? Maybe they can.
Yeah, they're talking about 1% growth for Europe. At some point, you have to expect that hits the U.S. But where are the growth stories within the U.S.? We were talking with Nancy Lazar earlier in the program from Cornerstone Macro. She does great macro research. And she basically said, look, in terms of CapEx and business spending, it's very strong. And the numbers have not reflected that. I was hearing the same thing, that, you don't look at things like spending on new technology, upgrading innovation within a company. That is also CapEx, and that's incredibly strong right now.
They're very hard to measure. In fact, economists for the last 20 or 30 years have actually been trying to include that in GNP and included investment.
It should be included.
It should be, but it's very hard to measure. But there's a good chance that in recent times, a lot of investment is in adopting new technology, training your workforce, reorganizing things. I tend to be more optimistic about where our productivity growth is going than a lot of economists. I think much of what we've experienced over the last decade has been post-financial crisis, and we'll get something as we come out of it, but it hasn't happened yet.
All right, so business spending, productivity, what about the consumer right now? How would you characterize the consumer in America?
Well, I think the consumption has been pretty strong. I mean, that underlies why our growth has been good. the U.S. consumer has remained pretty robust. I mean, obviously debt is rising, but interest rates remain very low. Housing prices in some places are softer, which could, slow consumption.
What are the weak spots? What are the places to watch? Is it the debt impact, $22 trillion in debt, or is it the global story like Europe and China slowdown?
I don't think the debt's a big issue. I mean, interest rates actually been falling on, any way you measure them in recent years. We have very low interest rates compared to historically. There are issues about how we pay for our pensions, how do we pay for Medicare, and of course, some of the plans that have been put out there by some of the political parties involve a lot of spending going forward, maybe in some future problem. I think it's the global story that's much more of an issue. We have had China growing for 4 decades. It has been a historic event. What happens when it finally really starts coming to an end? I think it's a lot tougher on Europe than on us. Germany's very dependent on exports to China. We are less so. But still, if Europe slows, if China slows, it's got to hit us.
Yeah, so you still expect a 3% number for 2018?
Well, I think that's going to be a stretch to get to that at this point.
After the fourth quarter?
Yeah, I mean, with the shutdown, with the trade war and everything, I think it's going to be very hard to get to that.
So close to 3% but maybe not 3%.
Maybe not getting
and
to 3%.
In 2019, what kind of a growth number would you expect, given the fact that, look, you don't have the tailwind that you had, with the tax legislation a year ago?
I don't think the tax legislation, the fiscal stimulus, is as much a part of the story as people tend to say. I mean, it's, been coming off. It'll continue to come off. But I think growth will stay up in the 2.5% to 3% range.
All right, we'll leave it there. Ken, it's great to see you.
Great to see you as well.
Thank you so much. Kenneth Rogoff joining us there.